Staff usually end up rolling. All right. Sounds great. Bottle out of the way. One chin. So you've done all the filming for those prior videos? Oh, yeah. Because I love the videos. You guys' videos are fantastic. Really good quality. Oh, I will say one thing. If I have any critique, the fonts sometimes are difficult to see. Like, did you do the holiday videos, the Christmas and the Thanksgiving? It was narrow font and it was very difficult to see. Or chunkier. Like I think the narrow font was used for that holiday look, but it was kind of like. But past that, awesome. Stop hogging the whole thing. I'm not thin at all, so it works. I get it. I know. Like I said, if I had to pick anything, I love love your videos, but it's just sometimes hard to see. Past
Well,
that,
hearing
great.
that is how we continue to improve
Right.
ourselves. All right, so please, do not hesitate.
Of course.
All right. How
Great,
are
great
you?
videos.
Committee member?
Yeah.
Katie Parker.
I'm Katie.
Hey, Katie. She's like, who are you guys?
Yeah.
Katie, I am Micah Giles. I'm the marketing director with KSNN. We're actually partners with the city. We're the ones that have been producing the Upland videos.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
seen
That's
it.
what I figured.
Yeah. So we're going to be filming some of the committee. Won't be filming the entire committee meeting, but we're doing a episode dealing with our resources and whatnot. So obviously the committee, we want to have some footage. Okay. So thank you for honoring our request to do that. Can I get you to sign a release just so that if we have your image in any of the B-roll? Won't have to have you speaking. James is going to do all of that.
That's right. He dressed for it too. You got all dressed up and you look all spiffy. How's it going?
Good. I'm looking. I've been trying to find an outfit for your birthday, and I've been shopping. Like I've been going to all of the places.
That's so
Both
cool.
my partner and I both like he has it in his mind.
Yeah.
No, that's not gonna work. So it's going. It's happening.
Very cool. I finally got mine.
Oh, you
Claire
did?
and I went to the retro.
David and this is
Okay, perfect. Went to the retro stage shop in Monterey Park this weekend. I can't wait. I ordered and then it's like when you try it on, it's totally different. So we went. I wanted to get a full one, so I went. And I'm like getting kind of concerned. It's like I gotta have.
Like if
It's
I,
my
it's my party.
party.
If my dress doesn't look right, this is gonna be a problem.
Yes.
That's awesome.
A little bit of pressure.
Right. No, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't had kind of dressed up in a long time for something like that.
Everyone's all excited about costumes. I know.
I'm just trying to get the right like look.
My husband's gonna go to theater company.
The
Red
what?
something on Denton.
Okay, that's where I was. That's one of my options. I was thinking of going down there. I remember, you know who Bill is, right? Councilman Bill.
Yeah.
So Bill, one time was having a Halloween party. This was 12 years ago. When I first moved to Upland, and Bill shows up front door in a three-piece, like the British beef, like the red with the. He looked like the guy on the bottom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I opened the door and I was like,
That's
oh
cool.
my gosh, like where did you get that costume? It was awesome. What a great, great costume. How are you, sir? Oh, long time no see. How have you been?
I don't know for how much longer, but
How are your holidays?
busy.
Busy. I had the luxury of never having this done happen before, but I threw up my back. I was in my kitchen and I was reaching for a plate, which I probably shouldn't have been doing. Reaching for a plate of something I already ate. And I turned and I kind of sneezed. Done. I was in agony until probably January 2nd. And trying to get a doctor's appointment anywhere between December 20th and January 2nd was a disaster.
Almost.
Everybody's dropping by saying, "Oh, what? Here, I have some of these pain pills." I'm like, stop, all of you. This is not what I'm at. Like, I just need to try to stretch it out and move. It was. I've never had anything like that before, but now I have respect for anybody who says the back hurts.
I could give you the exact same story about 15 years ago. You know, I'd see people with back problems.
Right.
And it'd be over like this, you know.
I mean,
Why don't they just stand up?
Just don't
You
get
know?
over dramatic. That's what I was thinking. Oh, same thing I thought.
I had the interior door. It was very, very light. I went like that, same type of movement.
Oh.
I said, something's wrong. And so I said, let me lay down for a little while. I got up.
Right.
I couldn't straighten out.
I got out of bed.
I said, okay, I understand now.
It was unbelievable. I rolled out of bed, and as I got out of bed, trying to get up, I'm stuck. I'm literally stuck. Unbelievable.
Oh,
Happy New Year.
So, thank you.
Nice choice.
Yes. This is my Christmas present. I told my husband the only thing I want is a Yeti with a straw.
Right. I love having it with the straw. It's so much
I'm
better.
like,
Do you need the whole thing?
the ones I got are cooler.
Yeah. I get it all over me because I'm apparently not coordinated.
No, I have a hole somewhere in my face.
Right.
Like, help me out.
I totally understand.
Is that it?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hi. Good. Good to see you again. I think our paths are gonna be crossing a lot these next few months.
That's right. That's what I'm
They're doing
understanding.
these resources.
Okay.
How are your holidays?
They were really good. We were home. It's my daughter's birthday, New Year's Eve. So she had a little couple friends over for like a little art project. And then we just had a birthday party for my mom. She turned 60. So I tested it. I've heard several families like that.
Right, right.
Your father, no COVID. It's like everyone else, everyone got COVID. Everyone I was around got COVID right
On social media, I posted
Am I in your way?
both next door and I think on Facebook, but the US
Everybody else does. Why shouldn't
you can order now 4 free COVID tests.
Mine done yesterday.
Did you see that?
There's
Oh,
is
really?
that-
And I asked
Well,
my
they'll
husband,
come to your address. So.
I'm like, did my son do that? Because my husband didn't do it.
Huh.
My
I
son's
ordered,
19.
I
He
ordered,
might have.
I ordered mine yesterday when I did it, and it was super simple. It was just
Somebody's
address
got
took
it.
less than a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really quick. I tried to do it today, and it goes, no, someone's already done it for your address.
Like you.
It's gotta be my son.
Has to.
Well, my husband's like to your address.
Right.
It's not like someone can order them and take them.
Right? No, but I
And
think,
what, you take it on the black market? I got COVID. That's something.
yeah. No, my 19-year-old son.
Just
So
wait.
I paid $400 for testing just to make sure Craig had it, I want to know, and then to make sure, because Claire had just a little sore throat, but she totally could have gone to school and wanted to go to school, but she couldn't because of COVID. She didn't want to give it to anyone else, so she was out for an entire week with a little teeny sore throat for 3 days. And she had COVID, and I didn't.
When you get the test, do they test for, is it just a positive or negative? Do they tell you what it is?
It depends on if they set the PCRs. Some of them send them out to the genetically sequence, but not all of them. So it depends on the county, the test site, stuff like that. But it's a positive negative.
Right.
It's like looking for something and it's a either.
I saw in water districts, they had strips that they were testing, and they were saying that just go to the water.
Yeah.
But it turned out it was something with one of whatever the water's treated with activates with the strip, and it gives it's a false negative. It's not like it's COVID and never treated it. Right. That's actually the example that they were using.
Well, I know they're doing surveillance with wastewater
Right.
to see the prevalence of COVID.
Right.
Well, and if you like do your COVID test.
Hey, I'm trying to get you rolling over
I've
here.
heard people are like, oh, I tested COVID.
I put it here, but you can turn it towards you.
But
But
test.
I just want to make sure.
And of all the things.
Come on.
to within the last 3 weeks. Almost 100 people. Like I'm like everybody, and the symptoms range from I was almost in the hospital to I had a sneeze 3 times and that was all I had.
Hello, hello. She'll pass out the handouts. Oh, she's not here.
I did. They set it up that way. I don't know why.
As long as this picks it up.
You haven't signed a release yet, right? Oh, you did?
We want to have you guys to have a mic.
Oh yeah. All right.
Oh, you should have the stand. Here. Yours.
I could please. I could fit it in.
But I can't, I can really reach it. Okay, there you go. This one's not going that far.
We gotta stand.
Okay.
I just want to do a quick sound check. When you speak, you really need to get right inside there. So if you could just each of you go one by one, say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go ahead.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You gotta get closer.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That's the best way for everyone to hear.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Perfect.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I just want to make sure that you know
4,
how
3, 2, 1.
Yeah, good, good, good.
I'm like, I don't need people to hear me.
Boy,
So we're gonna pass
two
all material.
nights in a row, huh?
Okay.
Other than COVID, you had a good holiday.
Yeah. And my birthday's January 4th, so.
Okay.
Yeah, my real birthday. I'm having a birthday party. I meant to bring an invitation.
Oh,
So my mom is the second, my husband's mom is the third. My daughter's the 31st, my mom's the second. My
Wow.
mother-in-law's the third, and my dad's the 16th. So it's like, it just keeps going for our family too.
On my birthday party on the 29th, because who wants to have another party? I want your address, because I was going to bring you an invitation. and I
Everyone's
didn't.
agenda have a packet.
yeah, well.
The intent was there.
If everything
Glad I
that
didn't print
you
it
emailed to us printed, is there any additional, Michelle? Is there anything additional other than? Gotcha.
Sorry, Michelle. Yeah, we're good. Thank you very much. Okay, James, I'm going to let them know downstairs. Give about 10 seconds, and then you can start the meeting. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. We are calling the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting in order. We're going to start with roll call.
Jaylene Marat. Katie Parker.
James Brightland.
Jay Jones.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any oral communications? Don't see any. we'll go to old business approval of minutes for July 21st and October 20th. Everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
The only correction I would make is my first name.
Mine as well. There's no E on the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Full
It's
name.
a hard one, yeah.
Okay. I should know this from my UA days, right?
Yeah,
I apologize.
it's okay.
Mine spelled correctly for once.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Now, moving on to new business, 5A residential organic waste update presentation.
Sorry, I'm going to take off my mask to do the presentation. Thank you, everybody. Obviously, one of the main components that we've been presenting in previous meetings has been the solid waste program for organic, residential organic recycling. And I just want to give you a quick update to some of the things that are going on within the program, as well as make a presentation on the storyboarding for our video that we're proposing to do. So one of the elements in October of 2021, the governor signed into law SB 619. Now, what SB 619 did was gave relief to agencies in order to meet the deadlines of SB 1383 for the organics recycling. Part of it with COVID, as well as a lot of the challenges that we've been having to get everything in line, the SB 619 allows temporary relief from any type of administrative penalties for not starting your program. Now, we do have to send an application, and if that application is approved, we will not accrue penalties for the year of 2022. But we also have to demonstrate that we're in line to make compliance of SB 1383, and if we do not demonstrate that, we could be fined retroactively. Now, we have to apply for adopt a notification with City Council by March 1st of 2022 in order to be able to apply for this waiver. And actually, the notification has to be sent to CalRecycle by March 1st of 2022. Now, the application has to explain what the continuing violation would be, and that would be not doing organics recycling, collecting organics recycling. The reason why the city is unable to comply. Now, the biggest component for why we can't comply, excuse me, is because without an agreement with Burtec, we can't establish rates for compensation for the program, and then they're not going to do the program for free. So we really need to get that agreement finished and finalized prior to this. Now, we're currently working with BBK to do a restated agreement, and we're continuing to talk to Burtec about updating that agreement in order to comply with SB 1383. Now, the impacts with COVID-19 is pretty evident for most agencies. We've had several different timeframes where we've had outbreaks within the city. And we're constantly closing our offices to the public, and it's made administration kind of difficult. We've had a lot of challenges trying to set up Zoom and doing all these meetings remotely. And it has also affected a lot of the things that we want to do, which I'll present a little bit later. And finally, we have to show a proposal of actions that are going to be taken so that the city will comply. And we do have a schedule, which we'll share in this presentation. Now, CalRecycle will review each request, and in 45 business days will receive notifications of acceptance. So just to show you, since the governor signed SB 619, the city has been working diligently to try to get as much of the programmatic things done. The first element was the update to our ordinance incorporating residential organics recycling into our city municipal code. This helps us be able to administer the program. That was done in November of 2022. The items that are shown on bullets are items that we're actually currently working on. Now, in order to meet compliance, we were really moving forward with doing an MOU, and that MOU was actually completed. It was distributed to both legal counsels, and this MOU was really in efforts to defer compensation payment until agreement could be made. Both legal counsels basically said, no, we don't think this is a good idea because you don't want to have an unbounded agreement of things that you're going to commit to pay without having some type of rate associated with it. So following legal counsel's advice, even though we did prepare the MOU, we did not initiate it. That put us back because we now had to refocus and work on Addendum 4, updating a restated agreement so that we do have a document to incorporate SB 1383 requirements. In addition, we've been negotiating. We've been talking to Burtech about elements that we want to include in addition to those other element updates, like cleaning up the language for billing purposes so that it's a little bit easier to follow. We were also talking about possibly terms, length of term of the contract, as well as, off the top of my head, it's franchise fees and agreements and updating that. So we've been talking about those elements, but without a firm document to work off of, it's hard to finalize a negotiation. So it will take us a little bit of time. But our goal is really to get an agreement done so that we can have a new rate finalized before July 1st of this year. We also are finalizing the process of hiring a management analyst specifically for solid waste, focused on these particular reporting elements as well as the programmatic elements that need to be done. We did identify an individual, and that individual should be coming on board on January 24th. I don't know if you are aware, Cal Recycle also has a SB 1383 local assistant grant that is due on February 1st. And so staff has been diligently working on that to make sure that we have addressed opportunities to reimburse our activities to make this program work. And based on some of the grant information that we got, we believe we should be able to get $103,000, which is pretty significant. That helps pay for the programmatic videos as well as the PAIL program as well as some mailings. So any bit helps, right? And we'll be going over this in a little bit detail in the second part of this presentation. We're really working on an outreach video, and our hopes is that outreach video will be completed by 2022, February of this year. Problem is that with COVID, it really has stalled many of the things that we want to do. We had talked about having voice actors participate as well as physical actors participate, but with this COVID pandemic coming around, this one is so contagious, they don't want to be indoors. So many of the actors don't want to be indoors, and we have to be respectful for that. So we're just trying to find different ways to prepare this video and make it resonate with the homeowners. As well as we were trying to get a site. One of our developers offered one of their model homes to say, hey, perfect, great opportunity to market. We're gonna let you use our site to go ahead and film. They backed out because of COVID. So COVID has delayed a lot of the things that we want to do because, yeah. So now we have to go look for different sites and make different arrangements, and it just slows us down from getting this video out. Now with SB 619, the urgency to get the video out is not so urgent because we were trying to shoot for the January deadline. Now we have a little bit more. We're trying to now shoot for July, but we want to keep the public informed on what to expect and how to recycle. So I think in the last meeting we did show a presentation on the Laguna Niguel's video, and we did hire KSN to prepare our video for us, and they've taken a lot of inspiration from that, and modified it to be much more specific to the city of Upland. Our hope is that after this presentation, we're going to have plenty of time to go through the storyboarding, the site locations, and the script for your discussion after this portion of the presentation. Now, the other element that we're working on is we're in discussions about moving the monthly fee for trash for residential customers to the tax roll. Now, I know this is kind of controversial. People are probably going to be very interested in it, but this is going to do a couple things. There's benefits for it, a couple things. Obviously, if you think about environment, if we don't have to have 6 mailings, that's a lot of wasted papers, that's extra, a lot of time and effort on staff to process it, and of course, mail service has to deliver it. And so there's always this paper, time, energy that has to be utilized. And so when we can reduce paper waste and all that and consolidate things, I think we take a look at those opportunities to do it. In addition, when there's late payments, trash service can't stop. We can't stop trash service. So in order for us to collect delinquent payments, we have to lien properties. I don't think any city should be really in the business for collections and liening properties. I think we want to minimize that. But that is the mechanism for us to go get that compensation. And so by putting on the tax roll, it eliminates it because everyone pays their property taxes. And if they don't, then they're completely different issues altogether with that, right? So that eliminates not only the time and effort our administrative staff has to deal with it, it also eliminates an extra bill that you have to process. I mean, how many bills do we have in the mail? Water, sewer, trash, telephone, cell phone, gas, electric. Eliminating a couple bills is not a bad thing for the community. And once you're in the program, I think it's a benefit that many of the community will enjoy. But it's just processing, having a bill transferred over to the tax roll that's difficult. So all this is to meet our intended goal of making sure that we get an updated solid waste rate by July and we start organic recycling, hopefully before then. I mean, it'd be ideal if we could get an agreement done in March so that we can start processing trash by April. But if not, we can push it back to July, and that's fine. And so these are the other steps that we have in order to meet that goal. We have to adopt an addendum and restated solid waste agreement sometime in March. We have to update rates and incorporate a residential organic recycling rate. We have to set a public hearing to notify everyone of these rate adjustments, as well as mail out notifications of what those rate adjustments would be once approved. And we have to hold a public hearing on those solid waste rate adjustments. So there's a lot of things that has to be done from the time from now till when we get organics recycling incorporated. But we're moving forward. Sorry, I'm going to pass this. What I want to do is go to the second part of this presentation, which is our video. And one of the things that we've been advertising for you guys is that our big push to really get the community aware of how to recycle is really developing a video showing them the do's and don'ts and what to do in the future. Now, the video that we're going to present won't have a timeline of saying we're going to start at this particular date. That messaging should be done on the website, social media, and newspaper events. But the storyboard is really what's going to tell our story in Upland's own voice. So, I don't know. Mika, do you think I'm okay with doing the presentation? Okay. As you can see right here, KSN, they're here to video, and they could make sure that I'm not misinterpreting what the story is going to be. But we're going to have an opening scene showing our beautiful city and showing all the benefits of it. And from that scene, we're going to go through this engagement of why we have to do organics recycling. don't want to read everything. I know I have small kids, but even my storytelling isn't that great. Yeah, James.
Did everyone get the script before, or? This is
We
first
did
time
not,
inside?
we did not
Yeah.
submit
Okay.
this script
And
prior
is
to
this the
this.
same one from the Public Works Committee meeting?
That is, yeah. So we're trying to take a narrative of going through the city, being responsible, going through why we have to do it. That's what scene 2 is about. Trying to explain what is organic waste and what's supposed to go in the trash. That would be scene 3. Then also show how we're supposed to place it in the trash bins. And then we're going to go over a quick refresher about what each bin is supposed to be used for. Grass trimmings for the green, organic waste in a baggie for the organic waste, what's supposed to go in the recycling bin, and what's supposed to go in trash. This is to make sure that the customer kind of refreshes what their responsibilities are. We're also going to be able to highlight our household hazardous waste program, which we do weekly and is a great service to the community, and is also an ability for us to advertise some of the things that we are trying to do to help the environment. And then scene 7 is trying to show what happens to the trash once it gets out of the trash can and into the MRF, then to the landfill and through the compost facilities. And we're going to have an informational slide to be able to show what, where you can get more information. So that's really how the slides are going to go. Obviously, I didn't read every single item. You have the script right there on it. I just wanted to go quickly over the intentions. Yes, Jolene.
I do have one question because it's come up. I've seen some posts on social media, Upland sites specifically about this, and one of the things that has come up consistently is, why is it bad to put their food down the drain? Why is that not the alternative? And so I didn't know if that wanted to be addressed or covered at all in any
In the
of this
video?
information.
There are, just to piggyback off of your comments, when you look at the numerous social media sites, I think the city should consider a lot of what I'm seeing and what you're seeing into this script. Because even Mayor Velto, I remember there was a council meeting where he had made the comment of putting bone meats and cheeses in composting. And I believe he was questioning, is that possible? And those are a lot of the comments that I'm seeing. Well, people's preconceived notions of what is compostable and what's not. It's almost as if we have to educate them from scratch.
Oh, yeah.
And undo a lot of what they think because of the way this is being done.
So in regards to your question, yes, that's what the intention of the video is, really to show a storyboard of, okay, it's okay to do meats, but not raw meats. And it's okay to do a certain amount of material, but we don't want liquids because, obviously that it leaks out of the bag and becomes a mess. And so I believe scene 3 is where they start talking about what products can go into the organic waste. And it's supposed to show a little, board that shows what's supposed to go, much like the Laguna Niguel video. Now, to your question, yes, it's not great to put food down the drain, even though you have a garbage disposal. There's issues with grease, and so what you'll have is like clogged arteries, backed up grease into pipes. Also, when you put down food down the waste, you also get a lot of roach problems. So some areas will have a lot of roach issues. I'm not sure. I don't think the intention was to add it to this video. Did you want to add to that, Nicole? It's on.
It would be my recommendation maybe to put a brief statement or two. I definitely want to prevent the occurrence of additional sanitary sewer overflows because that is a significant issue. State Water Resources Control Board is increasing regulations on collection systems. So it's good to note, more so for our commercial users who are looking at this as an alternative to paying, you know, a 400% increase on their trash bill if they can cut down on some of their organic waste. The bigger message is to those commercial users. But I mean, if a resident thinks, well, I'm going to have to, you know, store this sneaky stuff in my house, or I'm just going to let it rip down the garbage disposal, that might be something
That's
that
been the
they wanna do.
conversation.
Right.
That's been
But,
the conversation.
I mean, it's a good point to briefly mention that. I do
Even
think
just
so.
as simple as like showing them like
How to
emptying their
scrape a
dinner
plate.
plates into the waste container instead
Absolutely.
of down the drain, I think would be visually like, and just like maybe a little note like, you
Sure.
know, avoid putting food down the drain.
Right,
Ye-
that's a great point, and we should definitely do that. I know that the State Water Resources Control Board, at many of their new SSO waste discharge requirement public comments periods that they've had multiple jurisdictions talking about how this law is going to impact collection systems. So that's a point that we all do need to address.
So obviously, you've been heard. So we got thumbs up. It will be this part of the discussion. There is a little bit of time to add some additional notes to it, and if there's an ability to add that, that's something that we will definitely consider. Again, we're trying to get some material out as quickly as we can. So maybe it's something that we can add to the script, and you know, we can see how it plays, and maybe put it in, put it out. Our intention is to do more than one video. They didn't know about it, but I guess the cat's out of the bag now. So as time goes on, we'll see the effectiveness of this, and then we might do another video, especially if we get the grant. It will help pay for another video that would be kind of 2.0, allow us to really address whatever comments that we get from the first video to be able to address to the community.
Braden, do you think there's any, because of the amount of information that needs, for example, putting it down, the garbage disposal is a great example because that's just a huge problem that's going to happen. I'm going to piggyback that comment off of the ones that I'm reading of people saying, first of all, this new organics legislation is forcing me, and the people are not happy. And then they're saying, well, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to put it down the garbage disposal. And I'm reading like 20, 30 comments like that, one, and not just the same one, it's everywhere. So perhaps the focus of looking at what kind of comments to be expecting, that being one of them, another one saying, I'm not going to buy the bags. You know, if we were to focus on what people are possibly concerned about now and let this video be of just food waste and not the recycling, not the proper, that should be a separate video. This should just be for this, because if you put too much, people are just going to, they don't process well.
Yeah, I mean, the way we storyboard it, it should be a natural transition to explain that everything has its place. And I think that's what the video is really trying to focus and trying to refresh to everybody what place everything goes into. I get what you're saying with it. I think that's easily incorporated as much as we can, incorporate some of the questions that you find out now. But we also have to consider that we don't want to make this too long as well and lose the attention of the viewer.
Right.
So that's the reason why what happened with this original screen script was we took Laguna Niguel's script, got it transcribed, and their video was about 4 minutes long. And this is a significantly reduced amount of content in comparison to that script. So if you think about it, as long as we're under 4 minutes, I think it's adequate time to capture the attention of a viewer. And I don't think it's too much overload, at least the way we can have developed it. But once the script has been approved and we film it, we'll do a draft video. We'll hopefully make that presentation. I'm not sure how we're going to do this. Maybe we can do another meeting, a special meeting to do the presentation for you guys to see what it looks like, so that you guys can see how the look and feel, and is it too much or not enough, and get your commentary at that particular point.
I think just as long as the video in the end doesn't leave the resident with more questions than they started with, that's the goal.
Yeah, we're trying to do it in such a way where what would lead to what question, why we have to do it, how we're supposed to do it, what are we supposed to do, what aren't we supposed to do? You know, so we're trying to follow that script narrative of answering those questions about it. And sometimes you can't avoid by saying, well, if this is organic, what's green? Okay, what's green? What's, you know, electronic? What's household hazardous waste? So,
Right, that's right. I totally, I
Yeah.
see your point. It's only because, and I'm just saying, only because it's the organics waste, it's such a big topic that you could spend all 4 or 3 or however long the video, minutes are gonna, however long the video will be on that, just so people are clear on that alone. And then the second video can be an overall general recycling or however you wanted to do it. But if the opening intro to this is about food waste and organic recycling, and the HHW's thrown in and everything else, that's not, it just sends, I'm afraid that might be too much for, confusing for residents.
well, let's give it a shot because unfortunately, I'm not a film director or producer, so I'm going to leave it to the experts. I'm pretty convinced that they can do a very compelling video, and obviously, you know, hopefully we can get you guys' first screening so that we can have that commentary at that particular time. I think your points are very valid, but let's see how it progresses through and then make the commentary at that point. Okay? Yeah.
You gotta get the mic.
First of all, as well, I want to thank you guys for your input. Oh, I want to thank you guys for your input, okay? Because you guys are who we're talking to. You know, our instructions come from Braden and his team, but we've been in active dialogue about the importance of making sure the community perspective, because like you said, you guys are out there talking about this. So I just want to make sure at least I understand on behalf of KSNN what some of the key points are that you're addressing or that is being discussed. And that's really, if I understood you correctly, understanding really why it is an issue to put everything down the garbage disposal. Am I correct?
That's one, yes.
Yeah, okay, that, you know, residents don't always understand, just because the garbage disposal can dispose doesn't mean, or just because you can, that you should.
Right.
Essentially.
Right.
Exactly, okay? So that being point number one, and then point number two, what I was hearing from you, James, is that it appears that because the information is somewhat fragmented, people are responding based on bad information, what you're seeing on social media. Am I correct?
They're responding to what they're hearing, and what they're hearing is organic recycling is coming, and you're gonna have to put your food scraps in a bag, and the bag has to go either in your fridge or in this container, and then you put it out. It's a lot for people. So the simpler, the better, but people need to realize, like some of the comments are, but cheese and meats and bones, they're not supposed to be. Those little technicalities should be addressed in the video, because a lot of people are, you know, they have a preconceived notion of what composting is, because they're used to backyard bins. Backyard bin composting is completely a separate process and is only a container, and it's not meant for those types of materials. The composting that'll be done at Vertex facilities, that compost can absolutely handle that because it reaches a much higher temperature. But those are the nuances that you're gonna have to try to get people to understand, and that video will be the only time they'll be able to learn it.
I think what James is saying is that it needs to be very clear about what can and can't be composted and what alternatives to putting their food into the composting bins are acceptable. Because if that's not clear, then we're just gonna have more
Right, you're
angry
gonna have a big
residents.
problem.
Got it, okay, okay. Yes.
You know, implementation is going to be over time. And I think perhaps having this overview at the beginning, but then coming back informed by what people are actually doing. Because I think that's going to be a lot more powerful to say, you know, we have noticed that, and therefore these things go in, these things don't go in. And these are the problems that are made by not doing that.
That was one of the points in the grant application submittal that we just did. One of the categories that we did ask for funds for was for additional outreach, in stating that we had done, or that we're in the process of doing a video, but we understand that we need to do a check-in and a check-back. So we're hoping to receive some of that. And as you stated, it's about implementation. One of the things, I mean, if we all think back to seatbelt laws, right? Long time ago, but nobody was going to wear their seatbelt. Now look at its common practice. Now your vehicles ding, and the ding gets crazy if you don't shut it off. So I mean, there's checkbacks, there's like a bell curve for compliance, and we all need to understand that it's a process. That's why we're trying to be diligent in getting your involvement in this, and we sincerely appreciate that. But I do think in this case, we kind of need to do a wider scope. What is organics recycling? What are some of the key points? We're not going to hit all of it, but we want to hit the big items right in the beginning. I don't want to blow out my sewer systems, you know, in trying to do something good and do, you know, 10 times worse with another form of infrastructure. But I think inherently people want to do good. Social media is social media. It's you get on there and that stuff gets pretty negative sometimes. So of course the people that are gonna speak up, a lot of times that's it's social media. so inherently I think once we get the message out there, people do want to do the right thing, and they're gonna listen to the right message over time.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out, in our last presentation, we kind of had video, we were saying that the message was introductory. It was trying to get people comfortable with the idea. The next video, maybe the next video, but the next outreach material was to say, watch out if you're not doing it and we don't get our numbers, we have the ability to fine. We didn't want to start off that way because obviously that's no way to get compliance, and we will get actually mob mentality against this whole process. We just want them, because we're going to know that there's going to be a large portion of the population that's going to try because they care, right? Get them comfortable with it. Have them be advocates to the system, saying it's really not that hard. It's just a change of thinking, right? And then as we get closer to the deadlines where penalties are going to be, coming out, do another video or do more social outreach to say, we are obligated to make sure the system works, and part of the obligation is that we have fines built in that we can enact after 2024. That would be the next series of it. So I just don't, if people say they don't want to do it and all that stuff, let them, get comfortable with it. I don't think that we're here to take a baton and start beating people over the head to get it done.
Right.
The whole thing is, let me show you how easy it is. It's really not that difficult. I mean, if you have leftover large Ziploc bags, we all have those things. It's easy enough to use those, put it away, zip it up, put it back. Really, do you have to buy more Ziploc bags in order to do that? Maybe if you're my mom who recycles Ziploc bags, but for the most part, there's things that people can do out of the box that's not going to be that impactful, but they have to get comfortable with it. That's what the whole intention of the video is get them comfortable and educated.
Are there any other, besides the video outreach, like district workshops about it? Any other things that possibly could be considered?
I know that Cal Recycle has some videos, and actually Burtech wanted to partner with us, but we wanted to do something very upland centric, so we didn't want to share some of our videos. Not to say we're bad within the community, but again, we wanted to spend the time to really focus in on what upland is looking for. So as far as looking at other videos, I haven't really found anything else. I'm sure it's out there. But
I think what James is asking is not videos, but like infographics or things that could easily be shared on social
Community
media.
presentations, that kind of stuff, yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Grant funds are also being requested for additional bill mailers, brochures, and whatnot. Those come at a cost, so there's some funding that we did request for some additional help. I'm sure when we get closer to actual implementation, we'll probably be working with you to set up some kind of community workshop. I don't know. probably a couple of different workshops, so not everybody.
In addition, Burtech did develop a handbook to address it. It's about this inch and a half thick, basically going over the whole program. In it, they have infographics as well. So we wanted to see their infographics because they're the ones that are going to say, hey, you got to follow what we're prescribing in our for our service area. Right. So we wanted to see that prior to it. But our intention was to use a lot of those materials, especially in the video, as well as our own outreach material.
And is the process been determined yet? Or is that still part of the franchise negotiation agreement?
For the most part, most of Burtech's service area is all going to be put into the green bin. I think there's maybe at least one community that's going to have a fourth bin that's I've been told by Burtech. So for the most part, they have this idea of what they're going to do. I don't think any of Burtech's customers are in the process of doing it yet. So I think they're all going to have to go to the 619 process to ask for additional time. But for the most part, that's what Burtech is moving towards, and that's what we'll ask the customers to follow.
And just the last question, do the bags, have they determined what kind of, just, I'm noticing a lot of people are saying, do I have to buy these bags? Where do I get these bags?
We're asking that you use a white bag, clear bag, no black bags, because oftentimes when you're doing landscaping, you'll put your landscaping in a black bag, oftentimes. So we're asking them to be either white or clear. Other than that, we're not specifying anything else. The one thing that we don't want, other than black bags, is paper bags, because those will leak. And so that will be part of the video. I think it's actually shown right here. And, I guess it's for each individual how they want to handle it. But going to the grocery store and just buying vegetables, that thin plastic bag where we put our fruits and vegetables in to contain it and then weigh it, for our family, that's enough to do a daily bagging of food waste. But it's different for every family. So I don't want to say that people don't generate a lot more food waste and we'll have to buy larger bags on occasion. But I think it is manageable with what's available free when you go grocery shopping. And I'm bad. I go out to eat when I'm at work, and usually I get to a restaurant and they'll give me a plastic bag, and I say, "Hey, this is pretty good." I do save, as Mika says, I do save those things, just because I have two kids that are really messy. So that's really all we had for updates with the organics recycling. I hope that answered most of your questions. I hope if you have anything else, I'm more than happy to go over that.
I don't know if this goes in open discussion or.
I do have one more presentation, so if you want to have discussions on this particular topic, we can continue to ask questions.
It's this topic.
Okay.
So we had talked in our earlier meeting about a possible tour of the Burtech facility, and I would be very excited to participate in that. I think that would give us depth of insight, and we can say to people that might ask us specifically, "Oh, that's not going to go," or that this will go, and this is why. So I would like to see that happen. Maybe the latter part of February, if that would work.
It'll be perfect because when the new person gets in, I can task him as the first artist to set up the
That
tour.
would be great.
And she can have a tour as well. So it kind of dual function, right?
I won't be able to be here before the 15th, but after that. Oh,
And-
you want it before then? Oh, yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah, and I think it's a great idea. I know that was discussed before. We just, quite frankly, we've been pretty busy to try to get everything done. So I apologize for not having something scheduled. But I think getting her on board, the new management analyst, that is something that we can definitely have on her to-do list to get scheduled. Is there anything else on this topic? Okay, so we're just asking you to receive and file this presentation so that James, I don't know if you want to
Oh,
just
I'm
make
sorry,
sure
I thought
that
we were
you
going moving on. Sorry.
ask
Oh.
everyone to if you want to receive and file the presentation.
Oh, if it's a receiving file, they don't have to,
Do we don't have to do
no, I don't think
a
you'll
vote?
have to, if it's just a receiving file.
I'm good with receiving and filing if we need to have it on
All right, do we
record.
need,
Yeah.
do we have a second for receiving and filing?
I second that.
All right, we are all set. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so the next topic is something that is hard to visualize, especially since we have a lot of rain recently. But the state has been in a drought, whether we realize it or not. I think these recent rains has been very encouraging for all of us to say, wow, hey, we're out of the problems, but we're actually not. I think since almost 2010, it feels like there's always been drought warnings almost every other year. And it's built up. And so September of this year, you can see from the US Drought Monitor that much of the state of California was in exceptional drought. It was bad, especially in the central California, Central Valley. After these recent storms, and we had some really decent storms in December, it made a dramatic improvement so that we went from exceptional to extreme. We're still in very serious drought conditions, right? What these recent storms did was they provided not only water within the area, but also snowpack. And the snowpack is really important. That's what we use for our water throughout the whole year. So developing a strong snowpack is really important for our water supply. And as you can see, we went from anywhere to 140 to 170 above normal for our snowpack within April, the timeline, which is December 31st, basically January 1st. But that really only accounts to be over 50% of the snowpack that we typically have on an average year. So we still have a long ways to go. And when you have that much water coming down, do you think that'd have a big impact within our reservoirs? But it didn't. And you can see that late September, many of our reservoirs are well below its average levels. And after these recent storms, although it did help some of these areas, it's still well below its average levels. And so we do have a long ways to go. And quite frankly, MWD is really concerned with making sure that there's enough water to allocate to everybody. Because we do get a large portion of our water from Northern California. So much so that they've announced in December that they want to initiate a zero allocation of water from the state water project. That's the water we get from Northern California. And what that means is that zero allocation water is only supposed to be used for health and safety. That means drinking, sanitation, fire suppression, and basic commercial and industrial uses. What that would mean is if we would want to take any state project water, we would have to initiate requirements that we could not allow any outdoor watering. And, you know, we're Tree City, USA. We have a vibrant community, a very green community, and that would make a very brown community come up very quickly. But the state water project supply is a very important supply to us. We need that supply in order to meet demands within the city. But that was December 1st, and so as we were seeing these storms, MWD is trying to back off from, near death, but it's still very serious. We're not out of the woods yet. In fact, July 8, 2021, Governor Newsom called for voluntary water cuts by 15%. And from July to December, I think our consumption only fell by 6%. So that message did not resonate, and we did not see that big of an improvement. And it's hard unless you really, some of the previous droughts, the state literally had sign billboards on the freeway. They were messaging it on throughout the state through commercial and through social media. But we're not having that now, and it's hard. How can you have that message when you just had severe rains that has impacted, the cities, potholes come up, and you see snow in the mountains? So that message doesn't resonate right now, but as time goes on and if we don't get more rains, it can be a problem for us down the future. So what's important for you guys is to be aware of it. Yes.
Yeah, I got a quick question. So, specifically for Upland, I know in the area it's about 27% of the supply is, imported water, state water project. What specifically is it in Upland, the city of Upland, the percentage of imported water?
Yeah, we can range between 11 to, 22%?
Okay.
But our, 39% of imported water.
So it
But
varies.
we can vary, yeah.
Okay.
And part of it is if we get a lot of rain
Mhm.
and snowpack, we can take more water from our accounts from San Antonio Water Company, which allows us to take more canyon water. That's been a little bit more fussy because some years we can't get any canyon water. Other years we can get a tremendous amount of canyon water. That makes a big impact in our water supply. But our average was, as you say, is 27% from state water.
Like over the year.
Yeah,
So
over
even
the
though
year.
I know every day it obviously varies a little bit.
Yeah, and in fact, because of this water shortage, we basically tried to eliminate any state water project. We're just trying to provide as much storage as possible so that when we do need it during the summer, that it would be available. We're trying to be responsible. At one point, the state hydrologist, Michael Anderson, said that the next 3 months are expected to be drier than average. So our hopes is that he is bad, that he doesn't belong on a weather station and to announce, predict weather. But, obviously that's his experience, so we got to take it fairly seriously. So we're not out of the woods yet. As a result, many agencies like the WFA as well as IUA have basically declared level 2 water shortages or 50% reductions in our intake of imported water. So they're all trying to do the same messages as basically, hey, let's kick off that message that we need to conserve. Okay. Currently, we recently moved our 4-stage water storage levels. This is basically our water storage stages from 4 levels to 6. Before I got here, I was surprised to find out that we were still in stage 3, high water shortage level. Now, that was done because there was concerns with our water levels within the 6 basins. So that never changed. But it's a hard narrative. If you don't change the message and don't enforce, it's hard to keep that message out there. So I don't think we've obtained 35% because we haven't enforced it, water savings. But for us to maybe say, hey, go down to a stage 2, be consistent with other agencies, that's also a hard sell because we're dropping a stage. What type of message is that if we are really concerned with a water shortage in the future? So we're choosing not to do anything at this particular time because with the recent rains and the snowpack that we see in mountains, we don't think it's good timing to make those changes and make that announcement to the community. Realistically, what we're trying to do is wait to see when the narrative, especially statewide, becomes much more impactful, and then follow up with, we're doing this to match what the state is requiring us to do. Instead of saying we're going down, we're just matching. But we don't think it's time to do it right now, but we want to keep it on everyone's radar, and especially this group, right? Understanding that our environment that we're in, we need to be very conscious about the message that we're going to be sending out. And so Michelle, she works with IUA on a lot of conservation programs. And so we're really going to, once we get the other management analysts for solid waste, focus in on trying to advertise those programs so that we could set ourselves up better for this upcoming drought messaging if it is needed. Okay. So this time I just wanted to brief you on the upcoming drought messaging, possibly, and some of the things that we've been hearing from the state, as well as MWD. This is only, again, a receive and file, but we want to make sure it's on your radar. I'd be happy to answer. Yes.
Do we do any enforcement as a city? I know because I moved here in 2012, so I think 2013 was the base year that our bill now says are you reducing against 2013? And at one point there was don't water your lawn if you live on this address on these days and stuff like that. But is there any enforcement that's going on right now with any water restrictions?
I think it stopped, but I don't know exactly when enforcement stopped. Maybe Michelle can speak to that.
Yeah, if you're not reducing by 30%, or is there any education going out to those houses about what they can do or anything like that?
Just tap the top. Yep, it's on.
Hi. Right now, we're not enforcing. Once a waste call comes in, I reach out to the property owner or the person on the account connected to that address, and it's a teaching moment. Did you know your irrigation is running and causing excessive runoff at 5 o'clock in the morning? And they're very grateful. The response is very grateful, and they actually correct it. So I do make a note of it. But right now, we're not enforcing. We tend to to teach with the carrot,
Yeah.
not the stick.
Yeah.
I've only been here 4 years, so I don't know what exactly enforcement looked like back in 2013. So,
So we didn't go off, but we didn't do the enforcement. And the educational material was very difficult with COVID for the last two years. Sorry.
I have a question about the water supply infrastructure of the city. Is it in good shape? Are we losing a lot of water?
Our water loss reports are basically average for par for the course from what I understand, right? Michelle, you've been doing those reports. As far as our infrastructure, it is older. It has, I would say, we could invest more money if we had it. We did get a rate increase to do additional improvements. And so with that rate increase, I am proposing to try to hire an engineer to help get some of these projects out. In addition, they have some projects for bonding that they're going out for so we can make improvements to our infrastructure as required. So yeah, I wouldn't say that our infrastructure is in the best condition, but we've put allocated funding to make a lot of improvements, and hopefully we can get those out as quickly as possible.
Wasn't the CARES funding supposed to go to infrastructure too? Was there any that was allocated for infrastructure?
Yeah, so the CARES Act funding, they actually did a lot of stuff on street levels. Unfortunately, the city needs a lot of help everywhere. We have a lot of sidewalk improvements that need to be done, and so a lot of money was put into there. Alley improvements was put into there. We did some parking lots as well. And part of the reason why is because all those elements are needed, as well as they are part of the general fund
We don't have like other funding sources like Measure I to support that. And so we thought it was some of the best use of money to supplement those general fund allocations, which is with those particular projects, was going to be the best bang for our buck. And then we went to council to get a rate increase so that we could be able to spend more money on infrastructure improvements. The intention is really to get a master plan done so that we can prioritize projects based on a complete analysis of our system. But since that hasn't happened, what we're doing is just basically going from our institutional knowledge and developing projects to be improved on to meet the city's needs.
Well, the reason that I brought that up, there's an anecdotal observation. The corner of the block in which we live, the fire hydrant was taken out about 2 months ago by an accident, an automobile accident. And that hydrant has not been replaced. There's been a constant stream down the gutter, not a real big stream, but enough that I would like to dam it up and get a peristaltic pump and use it for my garden. But that's 2 months.
Yeah.
And I assume that the city's workers are just overwhelmed with regard to these types of projects.
Well, I have to say that we recently had quite a few of our utility employees being quarantined
With
due
the
to,
COVID,
close, whether they have it or be in close proximity for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it has really affected our ability to really function and work. And so things have been pushed back.
Yeah, that's only one instance, but I was really curious because that, nationally is a real big factor in water loss.
Yeah, and the state did regulations that require us to do water loss audits every year to see how much water loss we have within the city. And I think on average, the water loss on average is like 10%. I think we're below 10%. So nationwide is about 10%. We're below that. But to your point, any water loss is a loss for the community. And even though you could say it went down to the groundwater table, the reality is we don't want that. We've spent money to treat that water and prepare it for use in drinking. So,
Well, and this is a PR problem too, because when
Yes.
people see this, going down the whole block and around the corner,
well,
wait a minute, I'm supposed to be.
Right.
I'll have Michelle get your information so we can follow
Great.
up with. I'm sure a work order was done, and we'll just follow up to see what's the status of that.
I can just tell you right now, it's at the corner of 11th Avenue and Arrow Highway. Southeast corner.
Yeah.
Braden, for PR purposes, would it be beneficial to perhaps monthly at a city council meeting have just a water conservation update on tips and tricks that people can do, or Michelle's programs could be advertised? That way, it's not every 2 weeks, because perhaps that's too much, but at least once a month. We're in a water drought that keeps it on people's radars. A quick 2-3 minute presentation. Hey, these are some great. Turn this off. Make sure you're not watering at this time. Those types of community outreach tidbits actually go quite far.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why we've been doing it in the committee level is because, in fact, we did the same presentation, a little bit more in depth on the water supply side, but we did that in Public Works Committee, Environmental Sustainability Committees, so that we could have that discussion kickstarted. Hopefully the public, is able to see this and they're able to start seeing it. I think what would be more effective is we start having that message on social media. I think this is the thing that we all have to be aware of is how do most people intake their information nowadays? So they do a lot of Facebook and various other social media methods. That's the reason why we thought that video was so important, is because we think that we're trying to modernize our outreach. And I know that going to the city council meeting is great, but we're trying to infect a much larger audience than Nothing against this.
No,
The
no,
people
I
who attend the
understand,
city
but
council
I'm
meetings.
going to disagree, I'm going to disagree that the people that watch city council meetings are engaged in what's going on in the city. Those are the ones you want to target. You know, for, depending on how many Facebook people do it, I don't see why you can't do both, to be
Yeah.
honest. At least that way you're covering as many people as humanly possible. Just a thought.
Yeah, we'll consider it. I mean, yeah, because honestly, we wanted to do videos about our conservation programs too. We had this whole suite of videos that we wanted to do to help the community get it, and then when we do it, have that release. That was kind of our main focus. We'll consider the conservation message over at
Because just so at City Hall, there's the back has all those great programs that you advertise back there. I just, I take them and I know and I'll tell people about them, but it'd be great if
yeah.
it would just announce a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll game plan that because I'd rather do it with something that's impactful, meaning that maybe we can advertise a program, re-advertise a program where people can apply to that program
Right.
rather than just simple, and then get that message of conservation with that program outreach. I mean, just to do it for doing it, I'm not sure. Let me think about it. Obviously, this is something that we want to make sure that we have the right
Of
narrative.
course.
I think the most important bit of information you can give people is how are we doing? Okay, what percentage reduction have we actually had? We got to do better. Here are some of the ways that we can improve our savings.
I used to work for an agency locally, and we used to do a monthly production report that was always attached into the package, and in it had the conservation numbers and all that stuff. I think realistically, when you want to state that message, you really want to don't state it on a daily basis, then the narrative gets lost.
Right.
You want to find the time to say, hey, it's dry. This is the best time to start saying this narrative. So I agree with you. It's just timing more than anything else.
Or monthly.
Yeah, it's something to consider.
Or is that kind of what our function is to, as a committee, create opportunity for us to engage with the community? So if that would be like at the farmer's market, we have a booth and we can talk about these programs and help people to understand what the city's doing. Like, is that something that we should be doing as a committee to help push these initiatives forward a little bit and engage with our neighbors to talk about what
That
it
was
is
the
we're doing here?
intention. That was the intention of this committee when it was the discussion of developing it was.
Yeah.
It was to be able to be an outlet for public works, because there's only one or two of you. But you have people that want to help. So putting them together, I think, is what the purpose of this committee is for.
So how, should we start to maybe figure out where, let's do it.
Yeah, well,
I think they're saying that they need our help right now is what what I'm getting.
Right. If the staff-
And so how I'm here to say I'm here to help.
Right.
yeah, I think we do have events coming up like the Lemon Fest, 4th of July. 4th of July might be a little late with some of the messaging, but it's always good timing to it. And at those events, Michelle usually has a booth or two to be able to advertise some of these programs. And having your representation over at those booths and helping us out, I think would be
Earth
fantastic.
Day.
Huh?
Earth Day.
Earth Day.
Earth Day.
That's, yeah. So I know they're coming up, but I don't think they're coming up before.
April would be Earth
Yeah, I
Day. April
think-
20th, right, is Earth Day?
Yeah.
So maybe there's something that we can do to, even if it's as simple as us being in front of City Hall and letting people know they can come down and talk to us about what is the new recycling program? How can they conserve water? What questions do they have that they haven't been able to get answered?
Well, we definitely can bring something back at our next meeting. I know it's April 20th. I don't know if that's before or after Earth Day, so it's something that we can bring up all those events and then maybe. develop
April
a plan.
20th is Earth Day.
Does the city
Is
have
that our
anything?
next meeting?
Does the city,
Well, that's very fitting.
Oh my God.
is the city planning on
Which
any
is
Earth Day event?
really close to the Lemon Festival, because the Lemon Festival is usually the end of April, isn't
Right.
it?
Yeah.
Or right around Earth Day.
So maybe if the other video does, when the video does have the draft presented and we maybe call a special meeting at that particular time to go over that draft, maybe we can have that discussion at that particular time. Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I think we will call this meeting adjourned then. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.